Welcome everybody. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Scott Balfour. So if you have any problems with this afternoon, you can blame Scott Balfour. Iain would be touched to see so many people here, but it was a measure of the man, I guess. On behalf of Mandy, Dallas, Gillian, Callum, Ewan, their partners and their kids, thank you all very much for coming along to help celebrate the life of Iain Angus Campbell, commonly known around town here, but really by most of us as just Campbell. So if you were talking about Campbell, you just said Campbell. Now, there are people here today who've come an awful long way, and we do appreciate that. We can't obviously hope to cover everything in Iain's life. He was a very busy man. We can only hope perhaps to paint a bit of a picture, if I can say that, of his time here in Alice and how he enriched the lives of all of us, and how in fact he enriched the lives of the community of Alice Springs. Just to give you a very quick sort of intro to get Iain here to Alice Springs. His journey started in Glasgow, Scotland in 1938. He completed high school, and not surprisingly he won the High School Art Prize. And unsurprisingly again in 1956 he became an inmate of the Glasgow School of Art. He lived the traditional life of an art student. He lived in what they call a garret for a long time, which is the smallest room at the very top of a building, of a house, right underneath the roof. It was always the smallest, it was always the coldest, it was also the cheapest. A true Scot. He obviously had a few drinks when funds allowed it, and to make some extra pennies he worked on the River Clyde steamers to make ends meet. He obtained a diploma of art, and he found himself teaching, getting married, studying, exhibiting, and becoming a father. The family moved to Cyprus in 1966, and then 5 years later they moved to Gunnedah in New South Wales. I heard him talking on the radio just the other day at a piece that he did back in 2014 or 15, and he talked about flying over the territory, and I think he had a hankering always to come up to the territory. And when Cyclone Tracy put paid to a possible job up there in Darwin, he came down to Springs, and that was 1975. He taught art for many years at Ashes, and then in 1982 he moved to what is now the Charles Darwin University Alice Springs campus. He was head of the Department of Creative and Applied Art from 1986 through to 1995, and following retirement continued to teach part-time until 2003. So there's your man. We've got him here in Alice Springs. That's a very brief little synopsis, if you like, of his working life. So we're going to sort of break this up this afternoon into little aspects of Iain's life. Teaching, obviously, was a large part of it. So I'm going to go back to Gunnedah, because that's where he first taught when he was, well, the first place he taught when he was in Australia. And I'd like to invite Les Clark up here, who's come all the way from Gunnedah, and he's going to reflect a little bit on Iain's time down there with some thoughts and some notes from other people that Iain knew down in Gunnedah. So, Les, thank you.
I know that you people in Alice Springs like to claim Iain. I know the Glaswegians like to claim Iain. I think even the Cypriots have had a go. But basically, he was a Gunnedah boy. For 5 years he was there, thereabouts, and he affected so many people. He was so beloved of Gunnedah that it's a tribute to him that he's had such an impact on kids, teachers, the community there. He kept coming back to Gunnedah, and we appreciated that greatly. So I have some messages here from a couple of people and myself, and I'll start with one from a teaching colleague, Owen Hasler. Owen regrets that he can't be here today, but he has sent these words. It's a sad duty but a privilege to be able to provide these few words in relation to our wonderful friend Iain Campbell. Iain and I arrived in Gunnedah in the same year, 1971, and he provided some interesting international, nowadays called cosmopolitan, flavour to the very country-style town of Gunnedah. He even initiated the game of badminton, what is that you may ask, at the school, and showed passion for this thing called art, whereas most of the male staff were interested in rugby, cricket and boozing. Owen was anyway. They were joyous and unforgettable times, and Iain was warmly welcomed by the art community of Gunnedah by people such as Anne Knight, who introduced his 2015 exhibition in Gunnedah. Owen's wife was Di, so Di and I, perhaps surprisingly, found ourselves on the platform at Alice Springs railway station when Iain first arrived in Alice in August-September, school holidays of 1975. We were escorting 2 busloads of students on a Centralian excursion, small world. Iain was to stay in your community for the rest of his time in Australia. He liked it, but he yearned for Gunnedah. We were to keep in touch and visit periodically over subsequent years. And you know, when you are with friends, true friends, when despite the years, you fall into easy conversation and shared passions and hatreds, etc. As if you had only been talking yesterday. Although Iain was a little challenging for some of us to interpret after a few weeks rounds. Such was Iain Campbell. Simple pleasures shared, a Guinness or 2 at the club, a visit to the local art gallery studios, a sit in the home studio for a long chat and a look at his artwork, or the much enjoyed early morning walk to record the bird sightings, which we both enjoyed enormously, photographing and, in Iain's case, painting them. Such are but a few of my memories which I will cherish. In finishing, I would simply like to quote Catherine Susanna Pritchard, who stated, "Don't sacrifice your life to work and ideals. The most important things in life are human relations. I found out too late." Vale, Iain Campbell. So, Owen has very fond memories. I think Anne Knight is someone that Iain's shared a lot of time with in terms of painting. Anne's both a painter and a poet. And I know that they enjoyed that creative relationship. So Anne has provided a statement here as well. "I will miss Iain's presence in this world, and I will miss his Christmas letters. I could hear his accent as I read them. But I will gratefully remember his friendship, his distaste for dogma and pretense, his offbeat sense of humour, his intense interest in the world around us. We shared a love of birds, and his acute observation, all of which informed his paintings and underlined their sincerity. Iain had the skill to transform an everyday moment, a glimpse of a backyard, a girl hanging washing on the line, into memorable works of colour and design, a rare gift. My thoughts are with the family and friends, all those who loved him. Anne Knight, friend and fellow artist." So, my own memories of Iain are, well, I'll express them now. I knew Iain only in Gunnedah for probably 2.5 to 3 years before he deserted us to sort of come up and tame Alice Springs. But we had a long friendship, as Owen says. You don't need to be with somebody all the time. I was a new teacher when I met Iain in January 1973. We bonded over a drink or two, sharing a passion for folk music, jazz, art, poetry. He taught me about Glasgow, about Billy Connolly in those early years, Dr. Finley's casebook, and a place called Callendar, which he said was the real place that Tanit Bray pretended to be. And he claimed some kinship with a house there. He taught me about David Hockney, about the arts of sherry, wine and beer, and a deadly thing he called the rusty nail. Well, many colleagues, like Owen, complained they couldn't understand Iain's speech, his speedy Scottish delivery. I learnt the key to comprehension. It was to listen faster and to keep drinking. Iain was a brilliant teacher. His rapport and genuine interest in students' experience and ideas produced both intense student engagement and deep knowledge. He was well loved at Gunnedah High School. And those were outcomes that some educationists would struggle to formulate for years to come. But for Iain it was all instinctive. He communicated his love of his subject by example, and he engendered the same in the students that he taught. My late wife, Di, and I visited the Campbell family so often that Di began to speak with a Scottish accent, especially after a sherry or two. There were many long barbecues, impromptu dinners, musical sessions of jazz and folk, and viewing of Scottish soccer on a tiny black and white television in the garage in midwinter, freezing. But there was always laughter and good cheer. There was a time when Iain's quirky sense of humour led him to satirise the neighbours across the road, lovely people, the Gettys. The Gettys were very proud of their front lawn, which was a pristine green. And Iain one night had devised a homage in the form of a mower god, which in the middle of the night he placed in the middle of their lawn, much to their surprise when they got up the next morning. That was Iain, always something quirky, a practical joker, a man of great humour. And they were times that my wife and I just enjoyed fabulously. And as they were then, there were two wee girls, Dallas and Gillian, who made fabulous babysitters for my son Paddy and his playmate Callum. I think Ewan was probably too small to join in at that point. I learned a lot from him. I learned about Australian birds. It took a Scotsman to teach me. I experienced his garage where he constructed a packing case, a bar made from packing cases, which had previously contained artworks he'd sent away. And I also gratefully accepted his driving lessons, which may be a surprise to anybody in Alice Springs. He would pick me up at the pub, I'm sad to say, and he would have me hooning along at 110 in the back roads of Gunnedah when he would suddenly, without warning, yell, "Sheep!" At which point I was expected to do an emergency stop, which was, for some reason, his favourite manoeuvre. Throughout those years that Iain remained at Gunnedah, I was certainly fascinated by and moved by his artworks. He was extraordinarily energetic and productive. I don't know how he fitted it in with the amount of drinking that we also did. The vast body of work from Alice Springs that I've seen continues the same inventiveness, wit and humour. My current wife Sharon and I particularly love a painting that we saw at Gunnedah in 2015 called The Artist Dreaming. And it's a favourite of ours, and I can only imagine what a mystery and a pleasure it might be to see the dreams of an Iain Campbell. Iain's talent was immense. It wasn't simply confined to painting. I remember him writing a children's book. I can't recall the name, but it was about a boy who spoke, and every time he spoke, he delivered a physical pile of letters onto the ground. And this was, according to the volume, larger or smaller letters. It was a fantastic book, and it was a failure of Australian publishing that it didn't get published at that time. But Iain also wrote things. I know he was famous for his doggerel up here in Alice Springs, but he wrote a series of short stories that were based on his experiences in Glasgow, of the working poor, domestic scenes, and he allowed me to read that, and I don't know where that might be today, but that was a fascinating series of stories. But it was his empathy with and interest in people that stands out, I think, as a major theme, whether it was just his life or in his works. Iain was able to capture in his painting a moment to transform an everyday quotidian experience into a striking visual. He was able to capture the precise moment of drama, or whether it was a human interaction, whether it was a face, the Cypriot cemetery, which I proudly have at home, children beneath a mobile, I remember in the Gunnedah house, or sheets drying in a backyard, I think, as Anne referred to. So many remarkable paintings. I remember him working seriously on a triptych on the ascent to Calvary, and I don't know where that painting is or whether he painted over it. I just wonder where it might be today. I know that I and many others benefited from Iain's generosity. Many of the paintings that he did in Gunnedah adorn houses in Gunnedah. And so from Gunnedah, I'd like to express our sadness at Iain's passing and say, from the Haslers, from John and Lynn Hayne, from the Forbracks, the Fosters, the Percys, Crichton Bar, the Mullins, and so many others, farewell, Iain. You were an inspiration to us all.
Thanks very much, Les. You would have thought he might have, with all the stuff that he got up to in Canada, you'd almost imagine he was there for about 30 years. But your loss was our gain, so we're happy about that. Okay, we'll move right on now up here to Alice Springs. We're still reflecting on Iain as a teacher. And I'd like to ask Leslie Eastwell to say a few words, if she will.
I've got a time limit, haven't I, Scotty?
Yes.
You've got the bell? Okay. Firstly, I feel really honoured to be given this opportunity to say a little bit about this particular time. And I went off in the heady years of the late 1970s, 80s and 90s, gives away age and time. I met Iain in 1983 when I was much younger with the Certificate of Applied and Creative Art, which was being offered at what was then the old TAFE College, a ramshackle building at the side of what was Anzac High School. It was a beginning for me. I'd arrived in '75, but it was the beginning for me into the world the artistic community of Central Australia, because across Anzac Oval was the art shed, nestled next door to the Totem Theatre. And so there was a thing in conversation with many people, the amazing kind of way that Iain was able to give information in regard to the arts and beyond. So Iain Campbell was my teacher, he was my co-conspirator and co-exhibitor and a friend for many years. And so historically, we sort of walked through those into the building of Araluen, the beginning of this as a way of being able to show many levels of the amazing community that Alice Springs is. And I think that is what it is before us now, looking at many faces, and we all have amazing stories and experiences in regard to it. It's our loss, but we will contain many brilliant memories. How did I do, Scotty?
Thanks, Leslie. Rob Moss was a contemporary, if you like, of Iain's, an author, an artist, and I believe a lecturer, also at Charles Darwin. And he's written some words that Henry Smith is going to read out for us.
Hello everybody. As you've just learned, I'm Henry Smith, in case you don't know, and I was a colleague of Iain's for maybe 6 years. I knew Iain, and then Iain kept coming back because the art department was his pet. And when Susie and I were there, we changed a few things around. And I remember one time we moved a room with an artoscope that Iain had been really happy to set up, and we'd moved it, and Iain's face dropped. He just wasn't very happy because, you know, he'd worked so hard to get the thing off the ground, and he got, I think, about 18 students who were destined to do the degree course, and he'd worked on that, and then we myself, Rod and Susie, then started to teach the degree course. But it was his baby, and he kept coming back every now and again and doing the odd class here and there, and his night classes were really famous because he had a little wooden box that he kept in the office. It sat on top of the plan drawer, and in that little box it had just room for a bottle of claret. And so Homer and a few others, maybe Jeanette, I'm not sure, but a few others, they used to do a bit of serious painting for half an hour and then enjoy a little drink as a carrot for, you know, their good work. Anyway, and also Iain was the person who gave me the job, and I came from Melbourne and I showed him work that I was doing there in Melbourne, and he was impressed, I think, and so he said, well, you know, you could do a couple of classes here. So then I went back to Melbourne, I kept ringing him up, and he said, oh, well, why don't you come down? I said, I need another couple of classes. He said, well, you can just start a couple of night classes off, and that'll be it. So I said, okay, I'll be there in a week or so. So, and now I also got some words from Rob Moss, who's overseas at the moment, that I'd like to read out. So it starts, as it happened, Iain was my introduction to Alice Springs. He was one of 2 full-time staff piloting... Oh. Bigger words, thank you. And I'm also shaking too, so it helps, you know. As it happened, Iain was my introduction to Alice Springs College of TAFE. He was one of 2 full-time staff piloting a post-secondary art course, and soon to head the school as it evolved from TAFE diploma to degree status. I couldn't have loved upon better company. The sympathetic discretion with which he handled students and expertise in the field marked him as a reliable confidant. I loved his razor-sharp wit, was amazed at his facility with cryptic crosswords, amused by his comic verses, elevated by his Bodrum belting when he was a folk stalwart during its halcyon years. As a painter, he had no equal in our community. I watched him move through the lean, blue-grey 80s into a colorific phase, which endured throughout his rich relationship with Mandy. All the time by method and inclination, his eye cut to the chase, resolving whoever peopled his canvases to their essence. His marvellous work is an unparalleled testament to our times as it is of his journey. His great capacity for friendship and appetite for sports also extended to wide-ranging literary tastes and a passion for bird life. Yes, dear man, you were generous to a fault, self-effacing with your wisdom, a gentleman to the end, and I will miss you like moss. And just in concluding, I'd like to add on behalf of Susie and I that we wholeheartedly endorse those sentiments, and we both loved Iain very much, and we will miss him. Thank you.
Thanks, Henry, and thanks also to Rob. We'll move on from teaching now and get into the subject of bird watching. Campbell had a lifelong interest in birds, and not just sort of identifying them, but he was interested in the comings and the goings of the local birds, the interstate birds, and indeed if ever we got any sort of international visitors. He was delighted by them, he was intrigued by them, and many of you will have seen in his paintings, obviously, inspired by them. And his old mate, our old mate, Mike Gillam, is here, and I'd like to ask Mike to come up and talk about this aspect of Iain's life.
To honour Iain's memory, let me begin by saying we must not forget the living. I know Mandy will be supported by this generous community, and I also hope Iain's far-flung family will maintain a connection with Central Australia and avail themselves of the richness and the beauty that sustained Campbell over several decades. I've been tasked to speak about Iain's lifelong passion for birds, for early morning walks with binoculars, notebook and camera. I'm told Iain's bird observing habits can be traced back to his childhood in Scotland, to the wilds of Greenock. Here he made an important discovery, one that balanced his restless mind and spirit. In the calm light of morning, Iain found an incomparable solace in the company of birds. It's impossible to speak of Iain without referencing his art. Campbell's paintings did most of the talking. His self-portrait number 2, completed in 1977, not long after his arrival in Alice Springs, is a visceral masterpiece connecting the land of his birth with the desert landscapes of his future. Three mallards flying in plaster icon formation symbolise Iain's flight from Scotland and his arrival ultimately in the red heart of Australia. In 1999, Iain asked me to open his exhibition in Arrowlewan's Gallery 1. Campbell had recently emerged from a lengthy, traumatic period as a single man, massively reflected in the bleakness of his paintings. Conversely, Iain had never felt better. He found Mandy and was in great spirits. In one series, he painted the aftermath of an aviary fire. Decorative tree branches reduced to charcoal forms, trapped ring-necked parrots, perfect in death. Poignant and unforgettable. Iain asked simply that I keep my introduction brief and humorous. How on earth? I felt trapped in a visual arts vice, somewhere between human vivisection and suburban horror. To be sure, that exhibition was a precious gift for the town, but humour it was not. My subsequent address included serious contextualising that bordered on trauma counselling. And the crowd seemed gradually to turn and embrace the emotional force of Campbell's work. Despite the pity he reserved for those portrait artists who painted gum trees, Iain knew all the significant woodland trees, most red gums from Heavy Causeway south to John Blakeman Bridge and west to the sewage ponds. I stress significant trees because Iain was preoccupied with the habitat. He knew every nesting hollow, popular roosting branch and favoured flyway through and above the Euclid canopies. He knew which years the galahs had reared more than one brood and when they'd usurped the ring-necked parrots and vice versa. He knew the secrets of the pardalotes and when to expect the rainbow beards from the north. He noticed behaviours that are not recorded in books. Each morning, on average, Iain recorded 35 bird species. His field notes, codified and indecipherable, were transcribed by Iain and the resulting longhand was typed up by Mandy. Those observations were routinely passed to Birds Australia, an invaluable record at a time of significant change in the river corridor. Campbell loved his own family deeply, unreservedly, and he also revelled in the life of birds. I'm certain today's speakers will emphasise Iain's gentle and generous spirit. And I have no doubt this is a gift, in part from the birds. In 2014, I opened Campbell's retrospective exhibition and ignored his pleas for brevity and humour. I'm slightly sinking down these things. From those works, my wife and I agreed on a painting. Essentially, Maria helped me to choose between two. She claimed it would be far too difficult to live with Campbell's asphyxiated ring-necked parrots. Frankly, the consensus painting is a work of great silence, melancholy and magic. Iain is sitting quietly at a bar, his figure merging with the background. Not quite alone. A barmaid stands behind the counter, detached and flanked by a till, beer taps and schooner glasses. A scattering of brands and logos throughout. Reflected in the glass door of a beer fridge, Iain has hidden a tribute to Monk's screen. A ghostly face, a stray highlight, drifting in front of the garish beer labels. We never tire of its challenging perspectives and planes of light. And we're buoyed by its unintended message of survival and hope. Years later, Iain joined Mandy on the banks of the Todd, and he never looked back. In time, he roamed beyond the bush garden and began his communion with the birds of the river. He painted prolifically in a light-filled studio. With Mandy, he entertained all comers in a garden filled with bird song and his own witty vocalisations. Years later, the artistic fruits of his labour were exhibited here in Witchetties, a vibrant, joyful affair. Standing in Witchetties today, the shaky circle seems complete. wonder how Iain would portray this gathering, its tangled and tearful layers of joyful remembrance and immense loss. I'm quite sure Iain's final tableau vivant would have been joyful, brimming with memories of a life well lived. There would have been numerous sketches beforehand, quite a few painted over mistakes along the way. The astroturf and plastic flowers of today's cemetery, the exquisite array of rollies shading an idiosyncratic crowd of mourners and admirers. I sense that birds would have figured in such a grand work. A devoted pair of kingfishers at the very least. Can you hear that piping call? Perhaps he might have included the elusive ground cuckoo shrike, a single brushstroke, a blur, a very bad grey, scattering the zebrafinches feeding on the ground. There would be a male mistletoe bird, of course, a drop of vermilion that Iain described as the purest red in his avian palette. Secreted in the leafy bough, the red-gum pardalotes, unafraid, return the artist's appreciative gaze. Today I imagine not a flight of mallards urging our friend onwards, but an escort of pregnant parrots with their steps of creature.
Thanks very much, Mike. Surprisingly, perhaps to some of you, Campbell was a socialite, and he believed in joining as many clubs in town as he could. I'm talking, of course, about the Birdie Club, Westies, Feds, the Memo Club. The Memo Club, he used to tell those of us in the folk club, the Memo Club, he only ever went down there to get the Advocate. We told him, back in those days, the Advocate only came out once a week. Ah, yes, he said, but they don't always have the copy that I want. He was, of course, as I just mentioned, a member of the folk club, which has been part of this town, I'm proud to say, since 1968. And he was the caretaker at our folk club cottage, as it was known then, which is Canellan's old gardener's cottage, down the back of us here. And he, for a long time, was the caretaker there, and so as a result of that, he was co-opted onto the folk club committee at various times. He edited for some time the Folksmith, which was a magazine that we brought out from time to time. And he was also, in 1987, he was elected president. I'd forgotten this until I looked through some of these copies of these old Folksmiths that I have at home. And I was looking through this particular one, and I've got to try and find the right page here. Should have had it ready, but I haven't. I'll go to the front. Looking for the President's report, page 15. The pages aren't numbered. But don't worry, because I found it. Iain, as you know, is never short of a word. And we have articles and reviews of festivals in this magazine, written in longhand in a lot of cases, some of them typed up for those people who couldn't write. And we have the President's Report 1987-1988, and it says at the top of the page, President's Report. Then then Total Blank by Iain Campbell. Oh, God bless him. Alice Springs is, as you all know, is a place where people come and unfortunately people go. We've all made lots and lots of friends, especially through the folk music and the folk club. We've got a lot of us who are still in town here miss a lot of these old friends of ours, but we're very fortunate today because our old mate Bob Sharp, who's currently living in the unlikely place called Eggs and Bacon Bay in Tasmania. He likes his eggs and bacon, I can tell you. He's up here to say farewell to Campbell, and we've asked Bob to say a few words about Campbell's time at the folk club. I will lower the microphone.
Technical hitch. It's very hard to say in a few words, really, a sort of a lifetime of knowing somebody. You know, so it's really hard. I feel really privileged today to be able to share just a few of the things about Iain that I've experienced, which really has, in many ways, formulated a lot of my life since I've been in Australia, because I first met Iain in the early 70s, and I hadn't been in Australia that long. I was performing some songs and doing some things, and the first memory I had of him was at the local folk club at the CWA Hall. Now, if this was the folk club, there would be Iain right at the very front, with a big esky, not a small six-pack, a big esky. And I remember with a terry-tailing hat on. I can't remember, I think it was a t-shirt and shorts and thongs. And because I was quite amazed because I was doing a few songs, and all the way the time I was singing, he was tapping on the esky. And I thought, fascinating character, this guy. Then when I finished the set, Iain, during we had a bit of a break, Iain stood up and came over. It was like a bubbly bottle of champagne that had just been released. He came over and he wanted to introduce himself. He spent about 3 minutes introducing himself, which at the end of it, I hadn't got a clue what he'd said. And Iain by no means needed to have a drink not to know what he was saying. He had this wonderful accent. And it was first I felt really welcome. He was the first person to really, at that time, to make you feel like you belonged. And that was a magic thing, because ever since that time, of course, it wasn't long before I actually came down to live in Alice Springs. And Iain had a great part to play in that. And I had a nickname for him. It was Muck Campbell. I always used to call him Muck Campbell. He used to call me Muck Bob. I don't know why. So we spent many hours mucking around, particularly on the telephone, because when I went away for a while, Iain was always one of the first contacts that I would contact to find out what was going on in Alice Springs, or what the latest news, what was happening. He was a big part of that. So really, front row, and I thought he's there early, and I found out why afterwards, because the Memorial Club was just round the corner to the CWA Hall, so we could go from one straight to the other. One of the fondest memories I've got of Iain, in many ways, was when he was actually living at the Folk Club cottage. It was a magic time for a lot of us, and of course, you and Gillian, Dallas, I can remember all. And Callum, I can remember the kids there as well at times they come down. And Iain had this place so organised to the fact that, you know, we had the most fantastic concerts, which he'd be integral in doing that kind of thing. He'd started to form a band, and when I first again met, and I asked Iain if he played any music, he said, no, I just play the drums, which was a good start. And he then formed a band called Gone, which means no name in Gaelic, and he very soon had this folk club cottage bustling with music and life, and it was fantastic. And the one thing I always remember was he only shared this place with a bird. called Oscar. Now, Dennis is already almost fainting. The one thing Iain never tell us about, or he did sort of hint that Oscar was used to human sacrifices. So he'd have this coy way, of flipping his head under his wing and then going, and he'd take you into his confidence. So the first thing he told you is you felt like you either wanted to stick your finger in the cage or your nose, because you'd seen Iain do it. I'd have to see Iain actually go talking to him and doing this thing and stick his fingers like that. So when the bird looked at you and said, hello, the first thing you wanted to do, of course, was stick your finger in the cage, which I did. And Oscar was used to human sacrifices. And I've seen him clip the people's noses and their fingers. He would always try and warn, but the point is, I think it's the only time that Oscar was really important to Iain. Humans came second. So the Folk Club Cottage then really was just one of many things that Iain really was an integral part of. If there was anything happening at Araluen or parties, individual parties at the Folk Club parties, or whatever, doing any music, Iain would always be there playing his parade. He'd always be joining in. And have you ever had that experience that when you've known somebody or a character that you're sitting on your own somewhere on a train and you start laughing to yourself? Have you ever done that? You think it's like, you feel silly, don't you? But you do start laughing to yourself. Iain always had that effect on me. I'd be sitting there and I'd think back to some of these times at the Club Cottage. I'd think some of the music and some of the things he was involved in, that straight away I'd sit down and have a giggle to myself. And I will always do that, because Iain will always be part of my life. He is my life, part of my life in that sense. I will always remember these times. And in things like the cottage, the parties, we had. He would always be an instigator. I can remember once we had. You see some pictures here. It was the Mad Hatter's Tea Party with Kate Waterhouse, who was just turning a special age. And we wanted to make it into Alice in Wonderland for her. She always had hair like Alice in Wonderland. So Iain came up with some of these fantastic ideas. He came out one day to set up home for the party, and then inside of this, he had this whole cabin made of wire and mesh, which was long enough to go from our kitchen out to the garden. Was the cave for Alice in Wonderland. He never missed a beat. It was really good. He had everything inside the cave. He even had, you remember Hector, the school safety cat? He even had that stuck up in the tree. So that's the sort of person really, nothing was ever too much trouble. Great ideas, and he would always carry them through and be part of whatever was going on. If he hadn't instigated, he would be part of what was going on. And since we've been away, like in Tasmania, we've been really, we've actually had Iain and Mandy both come down to stay with us at times, and it's been a wonderful time. So we've never ever really lost contact with Iain or any of those people. So when I think of my first times here, really Iain was really stalwart, was a lot of fun, and had so much things to say and do. And when a party was being organised, Iain was always great to look out for a bargain, and I do remember, this needs a closing here, I remember one New Year's Eve party we were having, and I think Morag was one of the instigators in this to begin with, but the word soon got around very quickly that there was some whiskey going at a very good price up in the local supermarket, and before long, most of the folk crowd and Alistair had gone in and bought out all the whiskey in the supermarket. My memories, I think it was $12.65. It was supposed to be $21.65. I think the person who was dyslexic that put the label on top of it. It was one of the best New Years I've ever had. And we were talking again, just recently we were talking very, very fondly about some of those occasions. And now, I mean, I just touched on a few little things there. As I said, it's very hard to sort of put a lot into words. And Iain wasn't just Alice Springs in the sense too. He was always at every top half folk festival, whether it was in most of it was Darwin, Alice Springs, Tennant Creek. He was always at Temporary, and he was always a major player. And so that's just a wonderful memory to have. And the band they had was a great little band, and the Baran was beautiful, or bottle, whatever they call it. So look, I just, you know, I just really like to sort of finish in saying that I feel really proud and privileged to be part of this whole thing today. And Iain will always be with me, certainly. And Joyce, my wife, who sadly couldn't make it this time around, but I think she might be on live streaming, or whatever's happening, or recording, she'll be part of that. But she says the same thing. So thank you, Iain Campbell, for all you've done for me, and I'm sure that other people are going to say exactly the same. Always be loved by us. Thank you.
Bob Sharp, thanks very much. Bob mentioned the Baran that Iain used to carry around to every session we ever had. Slightly deaf was Iain. We'd play a tune and then we'd stop and have a bit of a yarn. He just kept playing. In fact, there are several stories about Campbell and his Baran. Some true, some obviously not true. This particular story I suspect is true. When he joined Gone Annan, or when he helped form Gone Annan, he decided to go down to Rock City Music to get some different instruments for the band. So he walked into the shop, he wandered around looking at all the various instruments, and having spied what he wanted, he went up to the counter and he had a chat with Darren and he said, "I want to buy some instruments." And Darren said, "Certainly." He said, "Yes, I want that red saxophone over there, and I want that accordion." Well, Darren looked at him and said, "Iain, do you play the Baran?" And Iain said, "Yes, I do. Why?" He said, "Look, I'm willing to sell the fire extinguisher, but can I keep the radiator?" I don't know whether that's true, but I suspect it is, you know, I really do. Now, Campbell was quite obviously a Scot. But the one thing that you came to know about him when he was here in Alice was that he totally embraced the green and gold of Australia. I know this to my cost because for some reason, you know, if the Poms are playing Australia or whatever, I have to back the Poms. And during the 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s and the 2010s, I lost Christ knows how many six-packs to Campbell on one-day cricket. He was that passionate. But he did love the green and gold. He was Australian, really, when he was here. Fellow Scotsman Eric Bogle expressed his love of the green and gold through one of his finest songs, Shelter. And to sing it for you now, we have Scott Belfer.
I'm drowning in the sunshine, pour down from the sky. Something stirring in my heart, bright colors fill my eyes. From here to the far horizon, the beauty does unfold. And oh, you look so lovely, dressed in green and gold. Can almost touch the ocean, shimmering in the distant haze, as I stand here on this mountain, on this loveliest day of days. I'm half the world I've drifted, and no wild oats unsold. They'd always be our dreamtime place. Spirits glad release. They'd always be our shelter. May we always live in peace. Drowning in the sunshine as it pours down from the sky. There's something stirring in my heart. Bright colors fill my eyes. From here to the far horizon, your beauty does unfold. And oh, you look so lovely, dressed in green and gold. Yes, and oh, you look so lovely, dressed in green and gold.
Thanks, Scott. He would have loved that. We move on from sort of folk clubby things on to Campbell the artist. For those of you who haven't read Kieran Fernand's wonderful piece in the Alice News, I recommend you do. I've read it 2-3 times, and I'm not joking. It's a great piece, and it's well worth having a look at. Kieran's here, and I'd like to ask her to come up here and talk to us about Iain Campbell, the artist.
My words feel a bit dry now as I look at them. I tried to write something fresh, but no point reading what I've already written for you. And I wish somehow I could sing now after listening to Scott. Many this week have remembered Iain as a gentle and kind man. And in my tribute and the news, I chose a gentle painting, as serene and luminous as he turned a tender eye on his aging self. But on the whole, and I think Mike Gillam has said this, Iain was not a gentle artist. Not before arriving in Alice and not after. His exhibitions, his major exhibitions, were mostly not gentle experiences. The humour and warmth in some works stood in contrast to otherwise penetrating visions, underpinned by rigorous structure, something Iain was committed to in his art. There was no stridency, but the work was uncompromising and in this way brave and thought-provoking. Even provocative, for the safety of conventional landscape painting was not for him. Not another Gumtree was a manifesto of sorts. Iain kept faith with his modernist training and Northern Hemisphere sensibilities as he developed his singular vision of this place. What is this place I've come to? He asked through his work, and who am I? What is my story in this context? It was in part a social story. Iain was the painter of the migrant or settler population of the town in its recent history. Gum trees would make an appearance though. Iain's way of bringing the landscape into the urban settings that he rendered so well was one of the great insights he offered. I'm thinking, for instance, of bowling ladies. I wasn't expecting to see it here on the wall, but it's great that these two very significant works are in our public collection. So beyond the uniformed ranks of the women in white on their manicured lawn, a motley bunch of gum trees rises above the tin fence, and in the furthest distance, the famed red rock of the centre. But there's none of the romance of the outback there. Rather, it's the way the country's held at bay that Iain acutely observes. And he managed to do this without judgment. not them and us and us, with a degree of affection while honest and unsentimental. This is true for the other great Alice work, inside looking out, outside, inside looking in. A set in the Ascot, the Alice Springs College of TAFE, which after a stint at Alice Springs High was his workplace until his retirement. There's a whole body of workplace paintings, a unique subset of a unique body of Alice Springs work. In Inside Looking Out, the view through the windows, whose geometry is perfectly executed, is to the distant ranges. An enviable outlook, yet the figures, no doubt Iain's colleagues, have their backs to it, absorbed in their own small circle, perhaps even a little numbed. Both these important works were made more than a quarter of a century ago, but Iain was still painting significant work in this vein until recently. I'm thinking of the quartet of Yipper and Ure rooftop paintings, 2011. The scenes of this so familiar bland car park are unpeopled, yet resonate with our human dailiness. And in the far distance, yes, a glimpse of the ranges, treetops, the inescapable dome of the blue sky. There are other paintings set in Alice where the natural world is effectively excluded. I'm thinking of Witcherdy's, this place as of old, the old airport bar, the works set in the Feds bar, the old Memo Club, noting the drinking culture observed across them all, us and us. You could say these are paintings about alienation. It is one of modernism's great themes. Iain stands in this tradition and used its painting language. It's a persistent strand of his work across his career. It's the mirror, part of the mirror at least, that he held up to us. Why do we love them so? Perhaps the reason can't be divorced from the enduring man, nor from the broader body of work that he made here. The portraits of his loved ones and friends and of people he came across, a bank teller, a barmaid. These works testified to the roots he put down in his adopted community, and they sank the roots deeper. There was also the work of memory, his surroundings and experiences as a child and as a young artist in Scotland. The past, perhaps more vivid because of his radical separation from it, and revisited right to the end, a migrant's story. There were some very sombre works, self-portraits, haunted dreams, painful personal experience, unsettling premonitions. When he showed us all these paintings to us, it was an invitation to a certain kind of intimacy. His vulnerability and humility helped us embrace the whole earth, and through it we saw ourselves more clearly. What a gift he gave us, and it lives with us still. Thanks.
Thanks, Kieran. I finally understand what the paintings are all about. I'm joking. I've always liked the really large ones. And I said to Mary one time, I want to get one of those huge Campbell paintings. I said, we're going to have to sell the house. We don't have a wall big enough to put it on. So I never got one, but never mind. Willie Dougal Beattie, also a graduate of the Glasgow School of Art. Iain's oldest friend would like to come up and share some thoughts with you. Those of you who used to drink at the old Feds Club, and I suppose the New East Side, or whatever it's called these days, would often see Willie in the end solving the problems of the world over a couple of glasses of Guinness with a certain Taffy Williams making sure he went home. Up you go, Willie.
I always get the microphone in the wrong place, so I'm relying on the reliable Dave to put it in the right place. I first met Iain 60 years ago, 1956, at the Glasgow School of Art. I'm wearing the Glasgow School of Art scarf. And should I say, I'm wearing half the Glasgow School of Art scarf, because the other half Iain wore when he was here. And he wore it often when he was doing his bird watching, tucked in like around his neck. We were there to study for a diploma of art in drawing and painting. He was the same character that you know here in Alice. He went into every activity with a passion. He always had plenty of friends. He drank hard, he played hard, and he worked hard. But for him, art was above all. He knew that it was his life. He tried for 1 year to live as an artist with only part-time paid work, but realised that that was not going to work for him. He learned that it was quite hard to sell paintings. He also learned the Scottish superlative. I'm going to be reading some of his words, and these are the words of Iain. The Scottish superlative. Aye, it's no bad, it's quite good. A neighbour said to me, when looking at a painting painted reverently, the Scots, they're a strange race when it comes to giving praise. And you'll often find that while in their mind the rafters they would raise, outwardly, the best you'll see is perhaps an eyebrow praise. Aye, it's no bad, it's quite good. When what they really mean is, it's terrific. It's wonderful, it's great. But the one thing the Scots won't do is ever overrate. Well, it's okay. It's about the most superlative you'll ever hear them say. Not for them sensational, the mostest or the best. With a laconic understatement, you'll find they'll case they'll rest. Aye, no bad, quite good. So, he reluctantly trained to be a teacher. I want to emphasise that. He really, he went into a teacher's college after all his contemporaries because he really wanted to be an artist. He trained to be a teacher like most other art graduates. But here again his enthusiasm took over and he became a passionate teacher, educator, passing on the skills and techniques that he had acquired, which many of you here today can testify to. He encouraged his students to believe in themselves, to enter exhibitions, to enter art competitions, to have small exhibitions in shops. He'd say promote yourself, but also promote art by being on committees and boards. Like all his friends, he had got married and began to have children with Isabel, which with typical Campbell enthusiasm, he didn't stop at one, he ended with 4. But fatherhood seemed to propel him in another direction, and he joined the British Army as an education officer and was posted to Cyprus, an island in the Mediterranean. I think he had assumed that he would be posted to Germany, where he could have studied the Bauhaus or expressionist art. But in the Mediterranean, he fell in love with blue skies, something we did not get a lot of in Glasgow. And that propelled him to immigrate to Australia and find the blue skies of Central Australia. Here he stayed bound to the landscapes and the friendships. Here he began writing his doggerel verses, where the words could put more meaning into the visuals, but always with a very wry sense of humour. Here is one: thoughts while camping in the centre.
thoughts while camping in the centre. I got to thinking, lying in my swag, under the stars, snug in my sleeping bag, of life and death, and how small men are, of plague and pestilence, peace and war, of the hopes of men oft cut off in their prime, and how little place we really have in the ultimate of time. I thought of fate, and how one never knows the future, and what will happen to one and those one loves. And with those thoughts, I slept. It was peaceful there until first dawn, when I was wakened by a buzzing. I slept and yawned, and as it grew light, thought of the things that I had thought last night. They say one bullet has your name on it, that may or may not be lies. But if it's true, then there's one thing certain, so have 1,000 flies. Iain had a good eye. He would always be making sketches on bits of paper or sketchbook if he had it. He would see something and know would make a great painting. His subjects were his life around him, the table, the window, the children, the bottles, the card players, the friends. I want to emphasise that Iain painted exactly what he saw in front of him. Some artists move things around. If the tree's not in the right place, then you stick it over there. Iain wasn't one of those artists. He somehow had a vision to see something and then to paint it. And who would have thought the top car parket you put in here would look so beautiful? Or the staff room at Central College. All his life he loved going to pubs and clubs. Many of his best paintings came from there. In most of these clubs Iain would paint murals. This meant he could combine his two great pleasures, painting and drinking. In one of those clubs, the Memo, I think, he painted a mural. He got his gear, he set it up for a few days painting. That would take his paints, ladders, etc. against the wall, and he left the note for the cleaner. Dear cleaner, please do not move my gear. Signed, Van Gogh. The next day he discovered a note from the cleaner. Dear Van Gogh, if you keep making this mess on the floor, I will cut your other ear off. It is difficult to explain how much observing birds meant to him, but it meant a lot and was dear to his heart. On one of my birthdays, he thought it would give me a treat and invited me over to Palm Circuit to go around with him on his morning observations. I'd been men being there at 6 a.m. and moving around looking at trees until about 8 a.m. He would then cook me breakfast. Afterwards he asked me what I thought of it. And I told him it was like watching paint dry. He never forgave me. But now, every time I see a bird, I will think of Iain. And I want to end by giving the artist another piece of Iain's advice, another piece of Iain's doggerel, the gum trees. Well, you've got to have a gum tree. I've often heard it said, preferably if it's growing beside a dry creek bed. If you're doing a landscape painting and you want to get it right, just add a blooming gum tree and paint it blooming white. I used to be an artist and I used to take great care with colour, tone and texture. And I used a line so spare until I came to Alice, when I found out with a shock that all I really needed were some gum trees or the rock. I've travelled around the galleries, the National and the Tate, and to see the Mona Lisa, I've had to queue and wait. But it's not till I came to Alice the thought occurred to me that I had to queue to have a view of the eucalyptus tree. My paintings weren't abstract, but they were good enough, and I entered exhibitions, but I couldn't sell the stuff. I, undaunted, kept on painting, with integrity, I thought, and looked down my nose at the rest of those whose gum trees were all bought. Well, I love your sunburnt country, and I think your landscape's great. And I wouldn't have no other, that's being bloody honest, mate. But there's one thing that dismays me as I watch the sun go down. There's 1,000 bloody gum trees being painted in this town. I've been to Stanley Chasm, and down Ellery Creek I've strayed, Palm Valley too, and overnight at Glen Helen Lodge I've stayed. I've wandered through the centre, and I've thought this over the years. I like my gum trees growing, not being sold as souvenirs. However, time has taken its toll as the years have passed me by, and to struggle to be an artist, I really had to try. So I gradually gave up struggling. But to give myself some cheer, I started painting postcards to afford myself some beer. I used to be an artist, but I've given the game away, and I've joined the ranks of painters who paint sunsets every day. And when entering an exhibition, I found out how to win. I don't just paint one ghost gun, I also paint its twin.
That's just wonderful stuff. Thanks, Willie. See, I bet half of you didn't know. Well, I think you probably guessed that there was an awful lot to this man. And we've had a pretty good example this afternoon of the talent and the love and the enthusiasm that he had for everything he did. But we'll move on from the artist side of things and go to the family man. And I'd like Mandy to come up. Or Dinah first? Oh, and okay, the two ladies, Mandy Webb and Dinah, sister. And she's going to read some stuff out.
Thank you. Okay. So this is what Mandy would like me to read out for her, and she's called it Our Life Together with Family and Friends. When Iain and I got together 20 years ago, I found to my delight that I was warmly accepted by his children, adults by then, of course. Suddenly, I gained a family in Australia. This meant a lot to me as all my immediate family were in England. Over the years, it's been wonderful seeing the grandchildren pop into this world one by one. Now there are 9 of them, and a photo of Iain with them all this Christmas is in the display area at the back. Family support over the years has been hugely valued, and never more so than in the recent hard weeks. I simply couldn't have managed without them, and I'm so grateful to them for all their help. One of the first things we did when Iain moved in with me was to build his studio, dubbed L'Atelier dans le Jardin, which was a cheeky Oz version of the French L'Atelier dans le Jardin, i.e. studio in the garden. It certainly was a big contrast to his original studio in Glasgow, pictured here. It was his great joy to spend a day in the studio, painting or writing up his bird notes with numerous cups of tea and the radio playing classic FM. While we were both happy exploring our own pursuits and relishing life in Alice Springs, we sometimes made trips interstate. For Iain, it was always about the people rather than the places. He was very welcomed by my friends and me by his, so our circle of joint friends was always expanding. I went back to the UK every few years to see my family. However, Iain hadn't been back to Scotland for 40 years, although he did keep in touch with his brother Donald, his family and friends there. Finally, in 2004, when my dad was turning 90, I applied a lot of pressure and he agreed to join me. First, we went to Scotland and caught up with his family and friends. We had a fantastic time, and for me it was an extra bonus when Donald took us to the town where my great-grandfather was born. We then went to England, and it was equally good. My family just took to him immediately. Forever after that, when I announced a visit, they would say, hopefully, is Iain coming? And if I said no, they would say, oh, well, make sure you bring him next time, please. Over in the display area, you can see a small selection of the photos we took back in the UK. Looking back through the albums brought me many happy memories. I count myself very blessed to have had 20 years with such a sweet and loving man. And I'd just like to say a tiny bit about Iain. Of course, there's so many things to say, and everybody's said a lot of them, but just to mention two of his nice qualities that I particularly liked. I could see he loved parties, and he loved dressing up and writing skits and singing songs and having fun, but he never hogged the limelight. I think that was something that was really nice. And secondly, while he was always interesting company and very knowledgeable on many subjects, he was also a good listener, and he was non-judgmental, and that was what made him very easy to talk to. My family did love getting to know him, and we'll all miss him very much. Thank you.
Iain, or Campbell as I said we called him, had a party piece. And we're going to get young Lachlan up to perform the party piece for us because it's worth seeing and doing. Some of you will have guessed already, I'd imagine what it's going to be, but this afternoon wouldn't be complete without this, the Wee Cock Sparrow.
Just a few short words before I begin. Up in the back is a picture that I drew in preschool of Grandad as part of an exercise we had to do. And Auntie Dallas inquired about one particular thing on his forehead in my picture of him, to which I replied, "Those are the creases on his face." Because unfortunately I never did meet young Iain, yet fortunately he was just as joyful, loving and caring as an old man. He always told us the best fictional stories and jokes to us grandkids, and even though he'd have to repeat it 2 or 3 times before we understood what he was saying, he'd always have us in stitches. And he'd always join us in laughter too, because he loved to laugh at his own jokes, that iconic warm laugh that created an aura of joy. He never lecture or yell or discipline us. It was always fun games with Grandad. However, perhaps the best Grandad stories weren't told by Grandad at all. They were told by all of you. He was really such an incredibly interesting person with a life full of glamorous tales. My favourites, of course, were the ones of a mischief young Iain. But we had to hear these stories from you because he took such a keen interest on our lives. He always cared and always had a moment to listen, even if it was to 10-year-old me talking about the PlayStation. He was a truly selfless person that didn't really talk about himself at all, which is a rare thing for artists. But even still, in fact, it was probably only around 7 or 8 that I even knew Grandad was an artist. "Is that Grandad's?" I'd asked Mum in disbelief when she said the painting on our wall was his work. Even still, before I knew of his great talents, when he was just a man with, and I'll quote 6-year-old me, the chimney coming out of his head, he was the kindest Grandad that I could have asked for. And whilst I never could understand a word when he said it, Grandad used to recite a little poem, and it went something like this. "A wee cock sparrow sat in a tree. A wee cock sparrow sat in a tree. A wee cock sparrow sat in a tree, chirping away as bright as could be. Along came a boy with a bow and an arrow. Along came a boy with a bow and an arrow. Along came a boy with a bow and an arrow. He said, 'I'll get you, you wee cock sparrow.'" The man with the arrow took flight at the sparrow. The man with the arrow took flight at the sparrow. The man with the arrow took flight at the sparrow. And he hit a man who was hurt on the battle. The man with the barrow came over with an arrow. The man with the barrow came over with an arrow. The man with the barrow came over with an arrow, and he said, "You take me for a wee cock sparrow." The man hit the boy, though he wasn't his father. The man hit the boy, though he wasn't his father. The man hit the boy, though he wasn't his father. The boy stood and glowered. He was hurt to the marrow. And all this time, the wee cock sparrow. And all this time, the wee cock sparrow. And all this time, the wee cock sparrow was chapping away on the shank of the barrow.
Thanks, Lockie. I started off at the very beginning with 5 pages of notes, and I thought I'd probably get through them all, but obviously some people didn't think I should because I've only got 2 left. So I don't have any idea what I said on the very last page. So never mind. It's probably time, I think, that we wind things up. And I'm going to propose a toast to Iain, but before we do that, what I'd like you all to do, if you don't mind, is to make your way over to the bar, grab yourself a glass of something, come back, and then we'll have a final toast to Mr. Campbell. And while that's happening, we'll be playing a little video over here of, I believe, all about the painting that's behind me. So take your time, but don't be too long, and we'll be back with you very shortly. If I could just get a little bit of hush. Thank you so much. I trust everybody's got themselves a drink. This is going to be very brief, but while I was waiting for you all to get a drink, I was just thinking about something that sort of intrigued me. Mary and I have been going away quite a lot over the last few years. We've been travelling around Australia quite a lot, going to different places. And we often stay with friends who we met when they stayed here in Alice Springs. And without a word of a lie, somewhere in that conversation that we'd be having with these people down south, they would say, "How's Campbell?" Now that's everywhere we went. How's Campbell? Well, his spirit's with us. He was a mighty man. He's gone, but he won't be forgotten. I'd like you to stand and we'll raise a toast to Iain Angus Campbell. Iain Angus Campbell. Thank you so much for coming. I have a special pint of Guinness here. We've enjoyed having you here. Please stay. There's plenty of food, there's plenty of grog. Tell stories, relax, think about the good times, and we'll carry on somewhere else, I'm sure, later on. But anyway, thanks very much everybody for coming.
Thank you so much to Dave Evans and Scotty Balfour, and to Willie Beach, as well as all the family and friends, but in particular you guys for today's event is much, much appreciated.